Radio to the max, KMMK 88.7 FM Coggon, Cedar Rapids, talk radio for Catholic living. And I am not accompanied with Father today. And so I'm Tony May, and together with my wife, Susan May, we co-manage KMMK. And we've been doing some looking ahead for our studio, trying to get things, wire diagrams scored away. And Tom Henneberry, I'm going to give a shout out to him. He's starting into that very arduous task. He came forward with nice diagrams for the work that he's done for the HVAC in up at Mary's house in Coggon. And it just automatically came to me is that I have nothing that even raises a candle to this for our other diagrams for both Mary's house and for the rest of Mary's house and for down here in the studio. It says it's running. Just reset it again. Just try it. Yeah. My co-manager was down here telling me that Facebook is not quite going, so those people on Facebook, we apologize for that. So we're broadcasting on both FM 88.7 and on the Facebook page, which is KMMK 88.7 FM. Try that without any spaces. Need the period in there under 88.7. And then finally under... let me get myself situated here. Finally, under the YouTube page is KMMK Tony May, and that wasn't well thought out. That was we finally got YouTube working for us after that was one of the first things we tried, but it didn't go very well. So. I'm going to switch over here. The topic of today is Medjugorje, and I'm going to switch over to giving you a nice backdrop here, if I can. See what's going here. Yeah, so that's what's going on with Mary TV currently, and that is a couple, Kathy and Dennis, who broadcast from the United States for Medjugorje. And anyway, we're not putting any of their audio on the track there, but often they have little snippets of events that have happened in the past and such, and those are really good to see. But I will give a shout out for Mary TV, just marytv.tv, that's how you get it. There are other places to get it, like if you just type out the word Mary TV, and just, go for that. There's a YouTube page, but this is the live deal, and I don't know how to get to the live version of the YouTube, but it might be pretty easy for somebody that navigates around like that. But I know for sure the feed that Mary TV itself puts out in Medjugorje, which is in Bosnia-Herzegovina, is marytv.tv. So very reliable, very good programming. 9 o'clock, they have a rosary on. No, what?
The music's still running.
Ah, sorry. It's on stop. You're seeing something old. Yeah, try to get, I don't know, just kill the page and start over. Yeah, we're still working with Facebook. There's something seems to be going. Let's see, maybe I'll just look it up on mine so that we can see if it's not working on two places or is working on two places. And I'm going to dive in. And yeah, it looks good to me down here. So we're going to go with that. And on these, sometimes on the PC, they want to grab an older version of what you just looked at. They don't want to look at the current version. You probably have seen that before with web browsing. So anyway, I'm going to go back to myself here on we'll check in with them later and see if they're on to a different thing. But I thought at the hour they would change the program, but they're still going with the same program. So as promised, I'm going to, well, starting with prayer. So I'm gonna hit the consecration prayer. We haven't done that for a while, so let me do that. We're almost to the end of the Christmas season, so I was playing a little Christmas music at the top of the hour there. And let's see here. I gotta adjust this microphone just a hair. Okay, there we go. So the official act of consecration to Mary, I got a Latin version, we won't do that, written by Maximilian Mary Kolbe. O Immaculata, Queen of Heaven and Earth, refuge of sinners and our most loving Mother, God has willed to entrust the entire order of mercy to you. I, a repentant sinner, cast myself at your feet humbly, imploring you to take me with all that I am and have, wholly to yourself as your possession and property. Please make of me, of my powers, of soul and body, of my whole life, death, and eternity, whatever most pleases you. If it pleases you, use all that I am and have without reserve, wholly to accomplish what is said of you. She will crush your head, and you alone have destroyed all the heresies in the world. Let me be a fit instrument in your immaculate and merciful hands for introducing and increasing your glory to the maximum, and the many strayed in the different souls, and thus help extend as far as possible the blessed kingdom of the most sacred heart of Jesus. For wherever you enter, you obtain the grace of conversion and growth in holiness, since it is through your hands that all grace has come to us from the most sacred heart of Jesus. Allow me to praise you, O Sacred Virgin. Give me strength against your enemies. And so I often wonder, Maximilian Kolbe, if he were around today, what would he think of Medjugorje? And I just think he'd be all in. John Paul II, a fellow Pole, he was all in to Medjugorje. He couldn't give an official decree from the church's standpoint because it has to go away, is how they evaluate these things first. And so, like in Lourdes, many people paid attention to the apparitions in Lourdes long before the church gave it the official designation, because that's when all this stuff was, virtually happening out there. The miracle of the sun and such. So I guess sometimes we have to take a leap in faith. We have to realize that how our church works. They have to give time for, it's kind of, you can really compare it to sainthood, how they make decrees on holy places, holy images, apparitions, miraculous events, miraculous things, such as the Our Lady of Guadalupe. I think if I remember right, there's still, it's considered a holy spot by the church, but I'm not sure that the church has ever come out with anything official about the tilma itself, the image of Guadalupe. Of course, and I invite you to call in and set yours truly straight. The number is 319-775-2579. We will not put you on the air, but you can, call in with your comments, 319-775-2579. And help me out. I don't have Father to help me out here today, so it'd take a whole lot of people to, take his place. So, what I want to do today is look through this book. It's called Triumph of the Heart, and we just pick up this book, and it's kind of written in a very personal way, very personal approach. Heart of my heart will triumph, and that's talking about Our Lady, who's on the front picture, and that's Mirjana Soldo's, kind of her summary or thesis statement about all of her experience with all the apparitions. But rather than talking about the apparitions right off the top, we're beginning like the book does and giving kind of a background of this girl, how, she is a girl in history that has had this connection with the eternal through seeing, our Mother Mary. And like I said, I think if Maximilian were around today, he would be all in on this. But his fellow Pole, John Paul II, he said some very good things about Medjugorje. He said he goes to Medjugorje every day in his prayer. And now it's probably a whole lot easier for him to go to Medjugorje. He probably, spends a lot of time there. As that'd be kind of neat to know how you, quotes, spend time in heaven since there is no time. So, I know that we have everything we want just looking at the glorious glory of God. Somewhat like Moses, I think he's one of the only people that has had a very prolonged experience. And again, if you ever get so lucky as to see the beatific vision in your life, how long do you need to be in front of the beatific vision when that has no time? You're out of time. So it's kind of like, as an engineering physicist, it's just kind of a neat concept to explore with our time-limited mind. You can only imagine, as the Christian song goes. So I'm going to pick it up. I know it's been so long ago that we won't remember, but it's just a familial setting that we're trying to put, the author of this book in. She is the eldest of all the seers in Medjugorje. And so she said, if I hear that you refuse to eat something, she said, then you'll come back home that very second. So Mirjana's parents were sending her from Sarajevo. Did I got the place right? No, I don't. I'm going to have to ask some help to see what the big city is in Slovenia that her parents come from. It's more or less, it's probably more the capital. Actually, there's a quick way to do that. Just jump to Google Maps. Rather than seeing where Fred's grocery store is down the block, you can just put in what you're looking for. Slovenia. And Ljubljana, that's where my friend is from, over there. And thinking of where you fly into. Slovenia. Well, it's not coming up. Okay. Anyway, her family is, going to a different vacation spot in the summers than she does. So they go on the Adriatic coast and enjoy their summer. And meanwhile, for some reason, this Mirjana is attracted to Medjugorje, where she has cousins. And she says, but her mom scolds her before she goes, pre-scolds the kid and says, you better eat all the food they put in front of you or you're going to be in trouble. So she said, you're going to come back home that very second that you refuse the food. So despite the contrast, I love Medjugorje. While My family was vacationing on the coast of the Adriatic Sea for summer holidays. I was going to an obscure farming village in the Herzegovinian highlands. And then Medjugorje means two mountains, or I think it's mountains, two mountains. So Medjugorje was not entirely foreign to me, though. From as early as I can remember, my family and I occasionally visited the village to see our relatives. As a little girl, I relished playing with my cousins and their friends. They raced through open fields and played hide and seek in vineyards. During these visits, I came to know a rural freedom that the city could not offer. So that was the big draw for her, a city girl. And so one little boy was especially kind to me. His name was Marco, and a year older than I was. He had thick black hair and eyes color of Turkish coffee. Marco's, speaking of Turkish coffee, I want to drink my coffee here. I guess for those on video, I'll show off my grandpa mug and Super Papa. So they call it, my one granddaughter calls me Papa, so they got this nice mug. His parents and my parents enjoyed spending time together, so when they visited us in Sarajevo, that was the city's name, I was struggling for. I said it, but I wasn't sure. I thought it might have been Spain. So I can get my geography. I am bad. I am terrible at Iowa geography. Holy smoke, I've lived here since 1985, and you'd think I'd know where a lot of towns are and stuff, but not so much. Marco would come along as well. My memories of him were as old as my earliest memories of myself. I even recall sleeping in the same room as him when we were little. Marco was different from the other boys. He had a peace about him, a quiet and gentle stoicism that I admired. And he was always smiling. I attributed his kindness to his strong belief in God, something his parents had instilled in him from an early age. When we were teenagers, Marco's fondness had developed in a more romantic attraction, but he was too shy to tell me about it. His feelings were clear to everyone, though. Every time that I came to Medjugorje for the summer, he always happened to show up under the guise of visiting my uncle and aunt. My cousins often teased me about him. There was not much opportunity for that kind of socializing in Medjugorje, though. I worked hard when I was there, like everyone else. On most days, my cousins and I woke before dawn to pick tobacco in the fields, and later we strung tobacco leaves to dry. Well, I got to see a little bit of tobacco here in Iowa. The tobacco plant, when my boy was in agricultural biochemistry at Iowa State, they used the tobacco plant to do many experiments on, because it's kind of a generic plant that acts the same as many of other plants to do with different things they developed or, for agricultural side. So my boy he didn't stay in agriculture. He jumped over to tissue-based research, but that's where he started. When I first started visiting, my uncle and aunt did not wake me to go with them. They thought I needed more sleep since I was not accustomed to their lifestyle. And they thought but it did not feel right for me to sleep when the cousins are working. So I started getting up on my own and going with them. At first, everyone was surprised, but my uncle soon began waking me up at 4 a.m. with the rest of the family. We usually had some free time after finishing our work. We had fun with simple things like taking walks on the outskirts of the village or sitting and talking on the stone walls. The kids in kind of reminds you of a little bit of Ireland. You see those stone walls. The kids in Medjugorje were always eager to hear about city life. I was just as enamored with their tale of living in the country. One of my closest friends was a tall, dark-haired girl named Ivanka. Her home was Mostar, and not far away from. She spent the summers and weekends in Medjugorje with her grandmother, and she was more of a local than I was. We connected on our appreciation for city life, and she particularly enjoyed talking about fashion, and sometimes about the fondness for a local boy named Rajko. So the place they're talking about, Mostar, is a city that is shared with Orthodox Christian. Well, not Orthodox Christian. It's Orthodox Catholic and Muslim. The far side of the bridge when you come into the city is the Muslim section, and that's where you get your Turkish coffee, and that's why she brings that up about the color of hair of this wannabe boyfriend. So I felt exhausted. There's a bridge between the two, and it got destroyed during the war when the Russians were in there. And it's rebuilt at this point very nicely. And we walked over the bridge and did business on both sides of the bridge, so to speak. But it's it's really a tribute. It's a tribute to how we can get along as a culture. Mostar is not necessarily a religious site, but you have people getting along, and most of the religious formation in those places is, you don't even have to talk about Protestantism or anything. It's mostly Catholic, and of that, it's Franciscan Catholic, because those are all of the priests and friars that are there in the area to help out with people formation and sacraments and being pastors of parish and such. I felt exhausted at the end of every day, and my hands were always sticky from picking tobacco, but I was joyful. In fact, my hands were the only thing I was ashamed of when I returned to school in Sarajevo. My classmates came back from summer holidays with beautiful sunbathed hands, while mine were yellowish black from tobacco residue, so I hid my hands under my school desk. It's funny how kids are. I mean, even myself, I was thinking of, if I get shortchanged on time in the morning, I will sit there and shave under my eyes. I got a very hairy face, so I always make sure that I've got all of these telltale pieces squared away. I'll go in there with a beard like everybody else, but I don't want to go in there with a beard that's more than everybody else. So I was told by our, I went to Creighton Prep in Omaha, and I was told by our college counselor guy to get shaving when I was 14, and I was reticent to it because I know what happens when you start shaving is the stuff just starts getting thicker and thicker, and I didn't want to go there. And so anyway, he was telling me that I should really be thinking about doing that. Father Bill O'Leary, not O'Leary, Father Bill Leary, and he had a brother also, Father Jim, I think it was Father Jim Leary that also taught there. Good folks. But that was only a minor inconvenience of hiding her hands. I felt wonderful when I was in Medjugorje. I felt alive. And I always looked forward to the end of each school year so that I could return. In 1981, towards the end of my sophomore year of high school, I began to feel unusual. So this is when those apparitions start, on June 24th. So I was more interested, that mere excitement about my upcoming trip to Medjugorje, and even stranger, it manifested into a strong desire to be alone in prayer. So this is something new for her. It's like a pre-movement before the actual apparitions come. I withdrew and prayed in silence. And I'm glad that, last time I read this, it was just about the background material, but now we're getting moving in this book at this point. And that's the first little hint. I withdrew and prayer in silence, refraining from my usual adolescent routines like taking walks with friends and hanging out in cafes. My mother became increasingly worried because my behavior seemed abnormal for a 16-year-old girl. So those that can't see, I'm picking up my coffee cup again. At the time, and by the way, again, this is the Kolbe Connection. We're at episode number 149. Be expecting some big hooping and hollering and partying next week. It's episode 150, and that's quite the milestone. Also, if you have any comments, we keep throwing that out every so often. Info at KMMK-FM.org. I have got a real good guy named Pete. He keeps us on task on different things that he sees wrong with the stations. And there have been stuff really wrong lately. And we just had an expert come in and go over our kind of our playlist software. It's called Simeon, like monkey. We got a monkey at the wheel, so everything goes wrong every so often. I think they aptly named that Simeon. So at that time, she was attending one of the best high schools in Sarajevo, and I think that there's Sarajevo, or just in Slovenia in general, they had a lot of German influence in the school systems and such there. We got all that from our, we visited there quite a few years. Well, it was on my 40th class reunion, and I'm up to my 50th class reunion. So, yeah, it's been 10 years ago or so since we had visited out there the first time, and then Medjugorje, of course, we just went there 2 Novembers ago. During breaks between classes, when the other kids mingled in the hallways, I began going alone to an old Orthodox church near the school. Most of my fellow Catholics avoided Orthodox churches, but to me, it was one that felt like peaceful refuge. And that's probably the same peaceful refuge that people see that like the Latin Mass. The church was always empty. The air inside was cool and dark and smelled of old wine and incense. Can't get much better than that. Each day I lit a candle and prayed, basking in the silence. I tried to comprehend what was happening to me. The strange feeling continued to intensify every day, and by the time the school year ended, I was praying more than ever before. I finally departed from Medjugorje. It did not seem like it was me who was going. It was like watching someone else's life in a movie. Why did I feel so peculiar? So she's having kind of like these out-of-body experiences. I think that's what it's called. So if that's not what it's called, give me a call. 775-2579. When my father dropped me off at the station to catch the train to Mostar, he could sense my confusion. As always, he cried, but this time he also begged me to change my mind about going. I hugged him. "I'll be fine, Dad, don't worry." Taking my seat on the train, a vague anticipation grew within me. Anticipation for what? I did not know. I was always looking forward to seeing my friends and family members in Medjugorje, but this was different and more intense feeling. Like I was standing on the edge of the unknown, about to dive in. I gazed into the window as the train passed the urban sprawl of Sarajevo and continued along the Neretva River, a ribbon of turquoise twisting through the Dinaric Alps. What was happening to me, and why did I suddenly want to pray all the time? Misty cliffs gave way to the wider expanse of Jablonko Lake, and a series of tunnels and arched bridges finally deposited the train at the Mostar station, where Uncle Simon waited to pick me up. And so we did that same trek because we landed in Sarajevo plains, and then we went down to Mostar, but we went past Mostar like she's going to. Within a few days of arriving at Medjugorje, all my questions were answered in a way I never have imagined. I woke with a smile on the morning of June 24th, 1981. I was the feast day of St. John the Baptist. And, oh, by the way, I wanted to check out the Medjugorje again. The TV, yeah, so the folks are, Dennis and Kathy are still on. So we'll check more towards the end of the story. But I think they're going to be on for the rest of the hour. And for those just joining, we are looking at Medjugorje a little bit here through the eyes of Mirjana Soldo, who wrote a book called My Heart Will Triumph, and that's about the Blessed Mother. Her heart will triumph. So she woke with a smile on the morning of June 24th, 1981. It was the feast of St. John the Baptist, the prophet described in the Bible as the voice that cries out in the wilderness to prepare the way of the Lord. But my joy had less to do with St. John than the fact that we did not have to pick tobacco that day. Holy days in Medjugorje were non-working days, which meant that I had plenty of free time. It was the perfect opportunity to catch up with Ivanka. Her family's home was next door to my uncle's house, and when I found her, she and I decided on a walk on the outskirts of Bijiklovici. I'm murdering this, but setting out on the narrow road, we stopped at a neighboring house to see if a local girl named Vika wanted to join us. She was taking a nap, but her mother promised to tell her that we had come by. At that time, people in Medjugorje never locked their doors, and it was normal for neighbors to walk into each other's houses unannounced. The most common pastime in the village was simply talking to each other. So, she's taking a nap. This girl works hard in these tobacco fields, doing the different work. And, young kids, they work hard, but they also have to recover. And we continued our walk. We heard, "Where are you going?" from a nearby, from nearly every home. But we got quiet as we passed the last house of the village. Strolling down an unpaved road in the shadow of Prodbo Hill, so Prodbo is where they have a Cross Mountain, and that's a holy site that was there prior to the apparitions of Medjugorje. So they're around there, and we talked about a terrible thunderstorm that had been recently hit the area. The phone lines were still down after lightning struck the main telephone switchboard. We also talked about everyday things. What we had done in school, new friends we had made, latest fashions, and other things teenage girls usually talk about. But lurking behind our lighthearted conversation was a heavy subject which neither of us wanted to acknowledge. Ivanka's mother, Jagoda, had passed away less than 2 months before after a long illness. A saintly woman, she embraced her suffering without complaint, even in the last moments of her life. As was the custom in Herzegovina, Ivanka wore black mourning clothes on that day, on the day of her mother's funeral, and would continue to do so every day for another year. So I could hear the sadness of Ivanka's voice as we walked, and the grief lingered in her eyes. I hoped the fresh air would bring her some temporary joy. Indeed, Ivanka began to smile as we talked and shared. Tiring of walking, we sat down in a shady spot below the hill at around 5 or 6 p.m. In the middle of our conversation, Ivanka suddenly blurted, "I think I see Our Lady on the hill." And that's it. That's January 24th of 1981, or excuse me, June 24th of 1981. She was gazing up at Pradbo. That's Cross Mountain. But I thought she was kidding, so I did not look. "Yeah, sure, it's Our Lady," I said. "She came to see what the two of you are up to because she has nothing better to do." But Ivanka continued to tell me what she saw. I got upset at her. Our parents had taught us to respect faith and never to take God's name in vain. So when I thought Ivanka was joking around with the Blessed Mother, I felt uncomfortable and afraid. "I'm leaving," I said. I headed home. But when I reached the village, a powerful sensation seized my heart. Something was calling me back, a feeling so strong that it forced me to stop and turn around. I found Ivanka in the same place, gazing at the hill and jumping up and down. I have never seen her so excited, so chills went through my body when she turned to look at me. Her normally tanned skin looked as pale as milk, and her eyes were radiant. "Look now, please," she begged. I slowly turned and looked up the hill. When I saw the figure, my heart whirled with fear and wondered why my brain struggled to process it. No one ever climbed that hill, but what I saw was unmistakable. There, among the rocks and brambles, was the young woman. So at that point, there was a cross at the top of the hill that people had struggled to put up there, and it was in response to the 1933 plea by the Pope to put a cross at the top of every highest peak in, I don't know if it was every country, but I know that he was very intent that it would happen in this part. Well, at the time, it would have been, no, they were still all separate countries, not divided with lines like they are today, but this was before it was Afghanistan. So So it was a holy spot where men had put a cross at the top, and they labored to bring the rocks and everything that this was being constructed up this, very steep place. Now, the Apparition Hill in Medjugorje is not as steep as a walk. And unfortunately, I can't tell you by firsthand experience how steep it is compared to Cross Mountain. Typically, when you go out there on a pilgrimage, you will go up both. But this is where she is seeing this is on Cross Mountain. So, and that's the first apparition that happened. So, I'm going to go, we just finished chapter 1, so I want to go into chapter 2 of this. And they have a little quote from Our Lady's message from March 18th of 2012. "I am coming among you because I desire to be your mother, your intercessor." So she was telling herself, there's a little class photo of from her school in Sarajevo, and I will put this blonde-haired girl in the middle into the camera so you can see this. Well, I'm going to switch cameras because this one's hard to get squared away here. So that is Mirjana as a youth, as she says in the picture here, from her days in school in Sarajevo. And am I dead or am I alive? That's what I asked myself when I first gazed upon the beautiful woman on the hill. My heart was in such turmoil that I could hardly identify one emotion before another took over. Pinch yourself, I thought. You must be dreaming. In those fantastic, frantic first moments, I did not dare approach the woman. At a distance of 100 or more meters, so what's that going to be for us? Meters, 3 feet, so 300 feet. The woman's face was difficult to discern, but I could see that she wore bluish gray dress and held something in her arms. I soon realized that the something in her arms was an infant. A mother would never climb such a hill with a baby in her arms, I thought. I was too fixated about the woman to pay attention to what else was happening, but I vaguely recall some other local children gathering around us. A boy named Ivan came by carrying apples, and when he saw what we saw, he dropped them all and ran away. And when Vika came to find us, she was so terrified that she kicked off her slippers and fled. So these children's faces is white. I mean, they're out working in the sun with tobacco, and they're just pitched white. And so this is, that's another thing that would scare them off. So they're fixated on something that they can't see on the mountain, and these kids are blanch white, and yeah, the kids are going, wow, this is something going on here, and it's scary. Ivanka and I looked at each other, and Vika ran away. Without saying a word, we bolted down the road. I burst into my uncle's house and screamed, I think I saw Our Lady. My grandpa Jalna, who was alone inside, looked at me in shock. She studied me for a moment. Let Our Lady be where she is in heaven. Take the rosary, go to your room and pray to God. I was too excited to explain to my grandmother that I really had seen something. So I did exactly what she told me to do. I ran into my bedroom and prayed. Eventually I stopped trembling, but sleep eluded me that night. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was that woman on the hill. Boy, that would burn something into your mind, into your mind's eye. I was certain that it had been Our Lady, more because of what I felt than what I saw. But wasn't the Virgin Mary supposed to be in heaven? I searched my memories for anything that might help me comprehend what I had just witnessed. Until that moment, I never imagined that a person could see Gospa, the Croatian name for the Blessed Virgin Mary. On earth, I had never heard of other so-called apparitions, and I assumed that for the first time she had appeared to anyone. There were apparitions that came before, but it's not maybe something the kids study. In communist Yugoslavia, okay, I said Afghanistan, excuse me, Yugoslavia, okay. They didn't have all these dividing lines of Slovenia, Croatia, Herzegovina, Bosnia. Religious books were practically contraband, so our knowledge of miracles was limited to the measured homilies of our priests, who were always aware that government spies lurked in the pews. Anything misconstrued as an attack on the regime the priests knew could send them into prison or worse. Although my hometown of Sarajevo was a communist stronghold, I had a relatively peaceful childhood. My parents, Joso and Melina, that's my friend's name in not Sarajevo, but Slovenia. And it's kind of like our First Lady's name. She, First Lady being of the President. She is, by the way, she is from Slovenia, our First Lady. So we were originally from Bijakovici, but they went to live in Sarajevo after they got married. I was born there March 18th of 1965. So she's way younger than I am. Yeah, that's one way of putting it. Even in my earliest memories, I was always a little different from other children. From the time I was a baby up until 4 or 5, I barely had any hair. And what I did have was wispy and almost stark white. One day, tired of waiting for my hair to grow in, my mother took the advice of a neighbor and shaved my head before my dad came home from work. She left me bald. I looked strange to the other girls, so I wore a cap and played soccer with the neighborhood boys. I was their goalkeeper. Eventually, as my mom had hoped, better hair grew back, and I rejoined the world of girls. I used to play with a little girl named Minka. During the Muslim calls to prayer that echoed through the city, Minka would suddenly stop playing, kneel down, and bow to pray. I watched her with wonder. One time I did exactly as she did. My mother saw me and quickly called me inside, explaining that Minka belonged to a different religion. Still, our friendship taught me not to focus on differences among people. Playing with friends was nice, but I usually preferred to spend time alone in the quiet seclusion of our apartment. I wrote poetry, painted, and sketched. I was especially good at drawing figures of women and girls, and my classmates often asked me to draw pictures for them. One of my drawings was chosen to represent my elementary school in an international art competition in Japan. It reminds me of a friend of mine that happened to go to Creighton Prep with me. I was from South Omaha, and we did not too many people there going to the expensive boys' school. So he was quite the artist. He would draw artwork on the city buses that would take us out to school. We lived by the Henry Dorley Zoo, which was just called Deer Park at that time, back in the day. I also loved to read. One book in particular, The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, or Male Prince in my Croatian language, deeply moved me. The story of a stranded pilot who meets a boy prince from another world left me with the sense that something greater lay hidden beyond what I could see. And it led me to ponder the big question, what is the meaning of life? And those kind of questions were always answered in the old Baltimore Catechism. As the little prince said, only children know what they are looking for. The geographer, the lamplighter, and the other characters from The Little Prince literally lived on their own little worlds. They reminded me of the residents of our apartment building, people of many backgrounds living in little concrete boxes stacked upon each other, so close to each other that they still, and yet still so far away. There was not many Catholic children in Sarajevo. The small number of us who came from practicing families had to go to catechism classes almost secretly at the Church of St. Anthony of Padua in the historic neighborhood of Bistrik. Well, with its distinctive maroon-colored exterior, the church somehow transcended ethnic divisions. Muslim and Orthodox also came there to pray, and the Franciscans who lived in adjoining monasteries served the poor of every faith. My catechism classes taught me to fear God more than to love him. I was left with an image of an angry ruler who watched from heaven to judge and punish me for every mistake. But I also developed a devotion to the church's namesake, St. Anthony, whose compassion and love whispered a different version of God. And with him, always with the infant Jesus and being tender. By the way, just a little sidebar. St. Anthony holding that infant, he, as a youngster, visited on these holidays, which we talked about Mirjana going on with how her family, basically her and her family went and took different summer holidays. And they went to a girl that was like a wheelchair-bound girl's family, the St. Anthony's family that he came from. And they spent, a large part of a holiday with them. And they would, but this is for the rich and famous here. This is for people that own castles and such. So, and this was down in Portugal is where St. Anthony originally came from. And he, he was curious of why this girl in the wheelchair of the family that they were visiting was so happy. And so she brought him into her bedroom where she had a grotto with the child Jesus, not an infant, but no, it was probably an infant, because I think St. Anthony did nothing else but just copy, her devotion that she had. And that's how she stayed happy. And he didn't seem to have that happiness that she had, so he adopted her practice of this girl that was wheelchair bound. One parent from the local Catholic community would always lead 4 or 5 of us on foot to the church. Before I left, my mother told me if someone along the way asked where you are headed, tell them that you are going to have ice cream or to a playground or something. In other words, don't say what you're doing, going to the religion class. One day on our way to catechism, we passed an elementary school teacher. Like most teachers in Sarajevo, she was a member of the Communist Party. Mirjana, she said, stopping. I stopped well. Hello, comrade teacher. She had to address every teacher as comrade. Drug for males and drugartika for females was our language. It's funny, that name drug. Wow. For the communists. Where are you headed? Asked the teacher. I froze in fear. I have no idea, I told her. And then I quickly turned and hurried after the others. She was probably more confused than suspicious. Under the leadership of President Josip Broz Tito, this is the famous Tito ruler from that country when they were undergoing this. Okay, so back to the deal of not Afghanistan, but what was that whole consortium called back in the day? Well, you can't look that up on Google Maps. So if Sue can help me out, we'll call on her for giving me my history lesson. So trying to find what the communist, under communist rule, what that big country was called over there of Medjugorje, Bosnia, Slovenia, the whole tract. So they, under Tito, the government sought to indoctrinate its citizens early by controlling the educational system. Sound familiar? Never changes, I guess. Hitler did the same thing. Our classroom history books praise the heroic ideologies of Karl Marx, Friedrich Engels, and Vladimir Lenin. The teachers repeated us that God was a fable and that religion, as Marx once said, was the opiate of the masses. I was often confused about what to believe. The government automatically enrolled children entering the first grade of primary school into the Union of Pioneers of Yugoslavia. Okay, we got that. So I can stop wondering what that word. I gotta keep my Afghanistan's and Yugoslavia's separate. As a new pioneer, barely 7 years old, we received the official uniform, a red bandana and a titovka, or a Tito hat, emblazoned with the red communist star. Throughout the pioneer oath, we pledged to love the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia and promised to spread brotherhood, unity, and the principles for which Comrade Tito fought. Blah, blah, blah. So, this is part of the scenario. So up to this point, she didn't put communism in the mix. And now all of a sudden we're getting a heavy dose and maybe an overdose. Any dose of communism for me would be an overdose. So, people that have been in communist countries and then they've been in the U.S., you get anything that smells vaguely of communism, and it's like a person that's an ex-smoker. I mean, talk about a person that hates smoke. You're not going to find a person that hates smoke than an ex-smoker. And so these people come to our country and, they can smell this a mile away. I'm thinking of my brother-in-law, my brother whose in-laws, they're Polish, and he gave me this rosary from Poland, which I cherish, and I have it, on the microphone stand. I cherish it so much. It's Kolbe's country, and it's also John Paul II's country, and it's also Saint Kowalska, her country, and it's a wonderful deal. But oh boy, I mean, this father-in-law of my brother would go on and on about all the nasty stuff happening in our country because he lived communism. He worked for Skinner's, that makes the pasta and all that, in his lifetime. He's deceased now. His name was John, but they call him Jan in their country. And so, anyway, that kind of, what I'm leaving off there kind of rings a bell. So we've got this whole backdrop of communism where Our Lady is appearing. So that's a very cool connection. And they have these Franciscans that are holding the line of formating people and such during such bad situations. So we're going to leave today with the Hail Mary, our episode number 149, in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, amen. We are praising Hail Mary from, kind of discovering her all over again with these Medjugorje seer in this book. So, Hail Mary, full of grace, Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. So, Radio to the Max, KMMK 88.7 FM, Coggon, Cedar Rapids, talk radio for Catholic living. And we'll see you on the next episode. we're going to leave you off here on Facebook and YouTube with a little bit of Medjugorje Mass going on right now.
Milosti puna Gospodin s tobom, blagoslovljena ti među ženama i blagoslovljen plod utrobe tvoje, Isus.
Sveta Marijo, Majko Božja, moli za nas griješinke, sada je na času smrti naše. Amen.
Slava Otcu i Sinu i Duhu Svetomu.
Kako bijaše na počet, tako i sada je vasta i vijeke vjekova. Amen.
O moj Isuse, oprosti nam naše grijehe, očuvaj nas od paklenoga ognja i dovedi u raj sve duše, osobito one kojima je najpotrebnije tvoje milosrđe.
Laudate omnes gentes, laudate Dominum, Alleluia, Alleluia, cantate Dominum.
Peto radosno tajstvo nasce Iso u hramu. Il ritrovamento di Gesù fra i dottori nel Tempio. Gesù s'andritten tage funder in Tempel. Gesù retrove o Tempel. Djevica veoma uznemirena traži svoje dijete Isusa, iako se trebala vratiti dan i pol hoda. Učinila je to s toliko ljubavi i našla ga u hramu. Kad bi danas majke s toliko ljubavi tražile svoju djecu, ne bi bilo toliko obitelji koje žive u nemiru. Oče naš koji jest na nebesima, svet se ime Tvoje, dođi kraljevstvo Tvoje, budi volja Tvoja kako na nebu, tako i na zemlji.
Naš svakdanji dan danas i otpusti nam duge naše, kako i mi otpuštamo dužnicima našim. I ne vede nas u napast, nego izbavi nas od zla. Amen.
Zdravo Marijo, milosti puna Gospodin s Tobom, blagoslovljena ti među ženama i blagoslovljen plod utrobe Tvoje, Isus.
Sveta Marijo, Majko Božja, moli za nas griješinke, sada i na času smrti naše. Amen.
Zdravo Marijo, milosti puna Gospodin s Tobom, blagoslovljena ti među ženama i blagoslovljen plod utrobe Tvoje, Isus.
Sada i na času smrti naše. Amen.
Zdravo Marijo, milosti puna Gospodin s Tobom, blagoslovljena ti među ženama i blagoslovljen plod utrobe Tvoje, Isus.
Sveta Marijo, Majko Božja, moli za nas griješinke, sada i na času smrti naše. Amen.
Zdravo Marijo, milosti puna Gospodin s Tobom, blagoslovljena ti među ženama i blagoslovljen plod utrobe Tvoje, Isus.
Sveta Marijo, Majko Božja, moli za nas griješinke, sada i na času smrti naše. Amen.
Zdravo Marijo, milosti puna Gospodin s Tobom, blagoslovljena ti među ženama i blagoslovljen plod utrobe Tvoje, Isus.
Sveta Marijo, Majko Božja, moli za nas griješinke, sada i na času smrti naše. Amen.
Zdravo Marijo, milosti puna Gospodin s Tobom, blagoslovljena ti među ženama i blagoslovljen plod utrobe Tvoje, Isus.
Sveta Marijo, Majko Božja, moli za nas griješinke, sada i na času smrti naše. Amen.
Zdravo Marijo, milosti puna Gospodin s Tobom, blagoslovljena ti među ženama i blagoslovljen plod utrobe Tvoje, Isus.
Sveta Marijo, Majko Božja, moli za nas griješinke, sada i na času smrti naše.